if you are focusing on a certain detail but can't get it quite that day, it doesn't mean that you're never going to achieve it or you're never going to get it. It's just things take time. And I feel like that's kind of what I've learned as closely going into my junior year.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Flipping Out with Bridget Sloan. I am your host, Bridget Sloan, and this is a podcast where you are going to be hearing from the amazing guests that I have lined up for you. That is going to be anybody from a coach to an athlete to a fellow ESPN analyst, and really anybody who wants to come on this platform and share their story. Now, that story is going to be everything from the good, the bad, the ugly, the highs and lows, everything in between. And today's guest, I am so excited. She is a sophomore at The Ohio State University. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Miss Payton Harris. Well, thank you for joining, Miss Payton Harris. Welcome to the Flipping Out with Bridget Sloan podcast.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, we were talking a little bit beforehand. This is my podcast, so I can say whatever I want on it, but I don't think the Big Ten gets enough love. It's getting better. It's definitely getting better, but I was so incredibly happy when you said that you would come on here because I think you just have such an amazing background. You are just a superstar in the gym, and I think the world needs to hear a little bit more from you.
Thank you. Yeah. I know you mentioned we were talking a little bit before about kind of like what this week looks like, and we actually have regionals this week in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So I know we're definitely really pumped for that, and yeah, I'm just really excited to be able to showcase a lot of what we've been working on this week and this whole season. So yeah,
Amazing. Well, you're now in your sophomore. I mean, you're technically like almost done with your
yeah,
sophomore
it's
season.
crazy. I know it's crazy.
Man.
Yes.
Well, at least is it finally warm up at Ohio State? At the Ohio
Um,
State?
a little bit. We have, like, some storm, like, watches, I guess, coming in, like, I guess tonight and tomorrow with, like, a bunch of rain and maybe tornadoes.
Mm,
So, we have to, I guess, keep a little eye out for that, but it's definitely starting to warm up a little bit, so I'm excited for summer for sure to come soon.
that's literally just classic Midwest weather.
Yes.
Okay, so you're in your sophomore season, but I want to kind of backtrack because you had an incredible freshman season. One thing that we don't really talk enough about is the transition into college. So I want to know exactly what your transition into college was like because it relatively fresh. But just kind of talk to me about that and what it was like your freshman year.
Yeah, so I ended up coming in the summer for about, I think it was 6 weeks, and, I had talked to my head coach Meredith about kind of what that was gonna look like, and obviously we had the option if we wanted to or not, but I felt for me personally, it was gonna be easier to be able to adjust to the equipment at the gym and obviously, start to have a good relationship with all of my teammates and coaches, but also I had the opportunity to take classes in the summer, so that was really helpful to be able to kind of understand how some classes worked. So, um, after talking to my club coaches, Andy Memel and Chelsea and Mike Birdie, that was really helpful for them to kind of give me some insight as well, kind of preparing going into college. And I remember the first week that I was here, I was able to start up lifting and training. And I was really nervous at first. I think it's usually just that first week or two, just kind of settling in and just not really knowing what to expect. But my team and my coaches and everybody around me was super supportive and helpful. So I felt like that made it a lot easier to be welcomed in and just not to stress about a lot of the small things. Cause I remember like moving into the dorm, I was so stressed about like how I wanted to organize things with my roommate and just stuff with classes and how that's going to look and stuff with practice scheduling. So um, we have a lot of really good people here that were able to help support and make me feel comfortable. So I feel like it was a really, really good thing for me to come during that 6 week in the summer. So then once preseason rolled around, I kind of was already in a groove of things and I felt really, really comfortable kind of already kind of knowing what to expect with practice, lift, and with school. So I think that was really, really helpful.
Is that normal for Ohio State, gymnasts to do, like, come in early before,
Yeah,
I
so
guess school starts?
so they usually they give us the option if we want to come down for the 6 weeks before, and not everybody likes to. I mean, it's kind of your own decision, but usually most girls do, and that's why I think it is really helpful just to kind of settle in for those first couple weeks before getting into a lot of the real good stuff. So, I would say it's pretty typical of most girls to do it.
Oh, that's so nice. Because I think transitioning into college, no matter if you're an athlete, if you're not an athlete, I mean, it's a transition,
Mhm.
and the beautiful thing I think with being an athlete is that you do get to come early, and you can, like you said, you get to transition in. It's like a nice smooth transition instead of, I know when
Yeah,
I started college, I did not go early, and it was like a brick wall, like hitting you
yeah,
over and over, and there's actually, it's more
yeah.
like a wave crashing into you
Mhm,
over and over, and you're trying to figure it out. So, I love that you were able to not only have that ability to start early and then feel confident and comfortable, especially getting into season, because I definitely want to dive into your freshman season. You qualified to the NCAA championships as an individual in the all around. What was that like? I mean, I don't know what that would be like as a freshman, especially being an individual. If you want to talk about that a little bit more, I would love to hear your point of view on that because that means that you didn't have your team with you.
mhm. Yeah, so obviously after regionals and having a really successful pretty much day 1 and day 2 as a team, we were all really, really excited about that, and we had beaten our team program record, so we were really, really excited, and, at first, it didn't really hit me, and I was, like, kind of just celebrating with the team, and they were like, "Oh, like, hey, like, you're also going to NCAAs?" I'm like, "Wait, what?" And like, it didn't really hit me at first, so I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, this is awesome," and then I had, the opportunity to go with Lexi Edwards, and she did floor and All-American, and she was amazing, but yeah, I think it was a really special moment for not only me, but just for the team in general, and a lot of the girls were very, very supportive and really excited, and, that kind of made me even more excited, and, um, yeah, I feel like during regionals, a lot of people talk about, like, how they felt, like, a lot of pressure and how it was, like, kind of a high intensity, like, meet and situation, but I feel like for not only our team, but for me individually, I feel like a lot of what we focused on this year is just staying in our bubble and staying within our team, and I think that allowed me going into NCAAs to just kind of feel and, like, do what I've been doing all year, and even having Lexi by my side and my coaches
Mhm.
obviously made me feel really comfortable and excited for, NCAAs last year, so yeah, it was a really great experience.
I love that. And I do think it's so funny how I always thought it was comical, I guess, how coaches would get so uptight. They would be focusing on scores and it like
Mhm.
during the meet and you can sense it. And then
Yeah,
you it's like you look over at your team and they are like in their own little world. They've got
yeah,
headphones, like they're just living their best lives. And I used to think it was just so funny. I'd be like, huh, it's like we're at two different places here. You have your team that is just focusing on what they need to do and focusing
yeah,
on themselves.
for
And then
sure.
sometimes the coaches can get a little crazy,
Yeah.
especially at regionals.
I would say
Oh,
that's a big thing for our team, and a lot of what Meredith has been focusing a lot and trying to remind us of this year is not to focus on the scores and the judging and just go out there and have fun and enjoy it rather than, trying to be like, well, I need this score to be
mhm.
able to, or I need to perform a certain way in order to get that score or something like that, or even just like comparing scores with other teams. And I feel like, um, put a really, really good emphasis on just trying to stay in our own bubble and just go
Mhm.
out there and have fun and enjoy it. And a big thing she also talks about is minimizing and move on. So, and then always before my beam routine, um, she gives me a fist bump and always says, just minimize and move on. And I think that really, really helps. And a lot last year too, just with trying not to go up there and be perfect and just go up there and just if I have a small mistake or there was a certain detail I was trying to focus on more and made a mistake, it's just minimize and move on or just try to if it was a bigger wobble or something, just try to minimize it as much as you can. So I feel like
Mhm.
having the emphasis on that last year and going into this year, I think has been really, really helpful for not only me, but my team too.
Well, and I think it's so important too. I love that. Minimize and move on. Those are life words that I
Mhm.
should truly live by. So thank you, Meredith, for telling Peyton that. And thank you, Peyton, for telling me. Because it's so easy to get caught up in the things you can't control. I was actually just
Mhm.
thinking about that the other day. I was like, man, if there's one thing I wish I was better at, it's letting things go.
Mhm.
It's like
Yeah.
I wish I could let it go, and I think unfortunately or fortunately, I guess it depends on how you look at it, but I do think gymnasts are just such perfectionists, and you as an athlete, you know when something feels good. Like midair,
Yeah.
you know it's gonna feel good. So, I think that mentality of, again, minimize and move on, that is well, your coach is really smart.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something I try to take to, like, with a grain of salt and just
Mhm,
always just, like, reminding myself that even though I've put in a lot of preparation and dedication and time that, um, it's all worth it in the end, and even though if there's a small mistake or something that, just always reminding myself, just minimize and move on and just go out there and do the best that you can.
Well, Peyton, I can assure you that your best is pretty incredible because
Thank you.
you have been an absolute rock star your freshman season and you continued that into this sophomore season. And I did want to ask if there was anything in particular that you maybe learned from your freshman year and have been able to either adjust that. I know, gosh, I feel like, I mean, I was an athlete a very long time ago, but I remember my freshman year, I was like, I had no idea what was going on, ever.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's almost the best. It's like
Yeah,
it's almost nice just being told where to go. You show
yeah,
up, here's
yeah,
breakfast, here's everything.
yeah.
And I know for me, like, going into my sophomore and junior, senior seasons, it was like I knew what to expect.
Mhm.
So, I guess my question is, were you kinda similar to that where it's like freshman year, you're along for the ride, and you're just there to do gymnastics and have fun, and then figuring things out maybe your sophomore season?
I think kind of like what I mentioned before, I think coming in the summer did really help kind
Mhm.
of be able to shift my mentality a little bit from, like, high school to college and knowing what to expect a little bit more even though I didn't really know what to expect, kind of once we
Mhm.
moved into, like, competition, I remember my first competition, I was like, "Whoa, this is way different than, like, club gymnastics." Like, I just remember I was a little bit nervous, but I think I was a lot more excited, but I think, um, at least going into my sophomore season, just I think a big thing that helped me my freshman year was also just leaning on my teammates and my closest friends and family. Even when things got hard and, my brain was kind of all over the place, just trying to juggle a lot at once, I think just leaning on a lot of my family and friends really did help just kind of be able to just stay focused and stay motivated and just kind of like keep on path. And also, with kind of what we talked about, just not trying to worry so much about the little things. And I think like my first month or two in college, I really um, would beat myself up a lot about if one thing didn't go wrong or say I didn't do as good on an assignment and then I would freak out and be like, "Oh my gosh, like this is the worst day of my life. Like there's no way I'm going to come back from this." And I think it would affect like me in practice a little bit just cuz I couldn't really focus on one thing at a time. So I think also reminding myself that I have to keep taking things one thing and one day at a time and not trying to jump forward a few weeks later and or a few days later even. But I think that was really helpful, especially going into my sophomore season. So I feel like I had a better kind of control of things that were like going on around me. So I think that was really helpful.
Absolutely. I think it's so well, and again, like we talked about earlier, it's so easy to get caught up in the small things. Like that's
Mhm.
almost the easiest thing to do is like, oh, you know, oh my gosh, it's like you fall on a full turn and it's like the end of the world. Your
Yeah.
life is coming to an end and then you have to realize it's just a full turn. It's
Yes.
just gymnastics.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Well, I am sure that you guys are gearing up for this weekend. You have a very big weekend coming up with regionals, but before we kind of get into that, what was a maybe just a personal goal that you had for yourself this year?
I think kind of tying into what we were talking about before is I think just going out on the competition floor and not trying to put so much pressure on myself and not having so many expectations because I knew that I did have a pretty successful freshman year. And I think automatically once NCAA's was over and I kind of felt like I need to keep going. I need to keep training hard and I need to keep up with everything. And I feel like that is kind of a little bit of that perfectionism in me with kind of like how you mentioned before. But I think this year just trying to go out there and have fun and just not put a lot of pressure on myself. And I feel like that has allowed me to be able to stay calm and just go out there and have fun and do my best because I feel like when I get really flustered and kind of am thinking about a bunch of things at once, then I tend to crumble a little bit. So I kind of knew that if I was able to stay more calm and just kind of control a lot of those emotions and those feelings, that I would be able to go out there and put on the best performance that I could.
Well, talking about performances, you are quite the all around performer for Ohio State. Is that something that you and your coaches talked about maybe in the beginning of season, or is it just, or I guess I should say, do you guys kind of find out your lineups and kind of find out everything like a couple days before? Or are you kind of like, all right, this season I'm probably going to be doing all around a lot. Let me mentally hone in on this.
I think that definitely depends on how you train in the summer. And if people decide that they don't want to, um, then it just kind of depends how they train at home. So I feel like Mayor and the coaches already kind of have a little bit of an idea of how
Hmm.
people are training in the summer and how they're working through a lot of things. So, and then obviously once preseason rolls around, I feel like we definitely do a lot of inner squads and kind of figure out like places that people might fit in the best or maybe not. So I feel like um usually or I guess I usually do all around, but I feel like it's never something we really talk about, but if there's
Hmm.
ever any adjustments or things that um I guess we want to change or work on, we definitely talk about that. But I feel like especially with the freshman class this year, we've made a lot of like in and out changes and I feel like in the gym it's been really helpful to be able to do a lot of those inter squad type practices to be able to kind of see where people are going to fit in.
So, okay, so for those listening, an inner squad is essentially, I guess I used to always call them like mock meets. I mean, it's
Mhm.
not a mock meet, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
You're doing like competition style, but in practice.
Mhm.
I know I personally hated inner squads. Oh gosh, I hated them. Do you guys do like ours was like the orange and blue team, like basically you would go like against each other.
Uh-huh.
Did
We
you guys
usually
do?
don't do we do like kind of like a meet in our Cavelli Center at the beginning of
Mhm.
the year. It's called like our Scarlet and Gray. So technically we have like kind of go against each other. But for an inter squad in practice, the coaches usually have lineups kind of in mind already, and we usually go up to around 8 people for
Okay.
kind of competing. So, yeah, we usually go around each event. Sometimes, usually a little bit later in the year, we'll wear like an actual comp leotard to just kind of
Mhm.
stay in that meet mindset. But we'll usually go around each event with the 8 people, and then that kind of allows Mayor and the coaches to kind of gauge where people kind of are going to fit in or if they like
Mhm.
secure their lineup spot. So that's usually how it works, but
Okay.
sometimes it changes a little bit.
Yeah. That's like the one thing that I've learned is how much strategy goes into a lineup. I
Mhm.
never As an athlete, you're not focused on, like, where you are necessarily in a lineup or how like, I don't know, I know for me, I had no idea how I thought they just, like, chose. I thought they were just like, "Yep, you," and then now that
Yeah.
I'm very much so removed and on the other side, and when I talk to coaches, I'm like, "There is so much strategy that goes into this." I'm
Mhm.
like, "These are things that you guys probably should have told me when I was
Yeah,
an athlete. I probably would have understood it a little better."
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's too funny. Okay, so you guys also just had conference championships,
Mhm.
Big Tens.
Mhm.
You guys did great. Not only did you guys perform well, but you guys set a program record conference championship score of a
Yes, we did.
197.05.
Yes,
Yes,
we did.
ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah, we were all super excited about that, and, we also talked about our rotation because Mare always says one of her most favorite rotations, was the one that we had, which was beam, floor, vault, bars, and, yeah, I thought that at first, I was like, "Ooh," like, ending on bars, because I feel like for me personally, I get the most nervous for bars for some reason, I don't really know why.
But you're so good at bars. I feel
I
like you swing bars so
I have
naturally.
definitely improved a lot on bars since especially club and my freshman year. So I feel like this year it's been a lot easier for me to try to stay a little bit more calm, but I would say I get the most jittery a little bit. But with the rotation that we had at Big Tens, I think we just kind of all were able to feed off of each other's energy really, really well, which I thought just kind of kept the momentum going throughout the whole meet and allowed us to be pretty successful in the end. So we were all super, super excited about that.
I don't know how you feel about conference championships, but that was always my absolute favorite meet.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I love it. I mean, I love going out there and competing wherever it is, wherever I am, but I feel like Big Tens and it's also like you get to see a lot of I mean, I have a lot of like really, really good friends on other teams, so I feel like being able to connect with other people and get to see them is always super fun. And even though it is kind of like a rivalry, I guess, with the competition, I feel like we're all kind of like a big family. So I feel like whenever I go against other teams that I have a lot of friends on, I'm always like super excited to see them. So it is definitely really fun.
I feel like the Big Ten, especially nowadays, I mean, it's getting more and more coverage. There's more and more exposure, which I think is amazing and so well deserved on all platforms for really any women's sport. Anything with women's sports, I think more coverage obviously is better, but especially the Big Ten, it's so crazy how 3 years ago, actually probably like 4 years ago, if you would have asked me anything, and again, honesty is coming out right now. If you would have asked me anything about the Big Ten conference, I would have said who was in it, and that was about it.
Hmm.
Now, I feel like, especially after Olivia Karras and we talk quite often about gymnastics, and well, Liv, she is Miss Big Ten. To me, she
Yes.
wears that crown. But
Yes.
it's so amazing to me how it doesn't matter what conference you're in. Every single meet is a opportunity to go out there, and it's not gonna be an easy opportunity. I think that is the biggest kind of change over the last couple years is that there were definitely teams that you could go up against where it was like, "All right, let's just do our thing and we'll come out, the winner." That's
Hmm.
not the case anymore.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about kind of what happens in practice and preparing for a meet,
Mhm.
especially for you and your team.
Yeah. So, especially before going into Big Tens, we had a new leotard, which we call the Pac-Man leotard. And it was, yeah, I loved it. It was super, super pretty and comfortable too. But
Ooh.
we had we usually play sometimes we'll play a lot of like really fun games to like stay motivated and kind of keep it a little bit competitive in the gym. So we ended up making a whole like Pac-Man board. So we had like a big whiteboard and then Mayor drew like all of the little zigzags and like everything and had like actual little cutout like Pac-Mans. So yeah, it was really fun. So pretty much on we went through each event and went through a lineup and then if you I think it was if you made a routine and stuck a dismount, you could take the little cutout Pac-Man and kind of start chomping away the little dots and the zigzags. So it was definitely super fun and like super competitive um, with the whole team. So we did that for I think yeah each event, and by the end I think 2 or 3 days of doing it, we ended up completing the whole thing. So it was definitely super fun, but it'll definitely allowed us to stay focused and um, stay focused but keep it fun because I feel like that's a really important part, especially with going I think like 13 weeks in a row. I think sometimes it can kind of drag on a little bit and you can get a little bit tired. So I think just kind of doing that and keeping it fun has been I think really helpful for not only me but my team. And I think we usually try to do a few games at least every other week or every so often. But if we usually don't do that, I feel like a lot of the time we try to set the tone before practice. We always do a huddle and little go Bucks. So yeah, I know Mayor always tries to kind of tell us what the day looks like and what to expect. So I always think that's helpful so I can kind of mentally prepare or kind of do what I need to do before.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I would say in the gym, it's always a super fun and loving and caring environment. So no matter what the practice looks like or if we have more numbers that day, I feel like everybody has each other's back and nobody ever complains and just kind of keeps their head up
Oh.
and yeah, it's really fun. Especially the Pac-Man game. I loved that. That was fun.
I mean, you gotta keep it interesting. When you've got that many weeks in a row of competing and it's like it I don't wanna say it can get heavy, but it can. I
Mhm.
mean, it's like you're doing the same thing
Yeah.
every single weekend, so definitely changing it up, and I love that your teammates don't complain. That is
Oh yeah.
not something I was the queen of complaining. I always did my stuff, but, like, I was gonna have a comment about any assignment,
Yeah.
and I was really I don't know how you guys are, but I was very big into, like, negotiating.
Mhm.
I wouldn't really recommend it for athletes, just do what your coaches say. It's really it's really important to just do that, but I was very big into negotiating, like, I would do things like, "If I hit my first 2, let's
Mhm.
only have 1 more,
Yeah.
not 5." So then it's like
Yeah.
3 in a row.
Mhm.
Yeah. Don't tell Meredith if you do that. Don't tell her it was my idea, but sometimes it works, sometimes it works.
Yeah. I feel like
And
a big thing oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, 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 well, I was just gonna say, I wanna talk about kind of we're gonna, like, do a double backtrack of you even
Uh-huh.
before college, but no, go ahead.
I feel like a big thing that we also do is a lot of pressure assignments with lineups or just with the team in general. So, especially for beam, Mayor always say, we'll go through the lineup, and then depending on that is what determines the rest of our assignment. Or if I go up and hit 2 routines and stick 1 or 2 dismounts, then that takes away, that starts to minus routines. So I feel like that also makes it a little bit fun to have more of that pressure. And I don't know, I just feel like it kind of allows me to just kind of like, okay, like kind of get in that meat mode still a little bit. So I feel like I guess that's might be Mare's way of, like, negotiating a little bit, I would say. And
I'm sure.
whenever we make it as a team, she's like, "Dang it, I really wanted you guys to do, like, 3 or 4 routines today." And if we make the deal and it's only, like, say, like, 2, and she's like, "Dang it, I really wanted you guys to do a little bit more." But she's always, like, gets really excited and happy when we all go up there and kinda do our own little thing, I guess, but yeah,
Oh, I'm
it's fun.
sure. I'm sure. Of course, every coach is gonna tell you, "Oh, I wanted you to do the long assignment," but deep down,
Yeah,
they're like, "Wait, this is gonna make practice go even quicker. This
mhm,
is good for everybody."
yeah,
Don't let her fool you.
yeah,
And so now we're, like, gonna double backtrack here because you mentioned who your coaches were in
mhm,
club,
mhm,
and you're also from Wisconsin, and
yeah,
before we started recording the podcast today, you s you were talking about a little bit about how your teammates sometimes mention your accent. I personally have not heard a Wisconsin accent in this interview.
I don't know, it's usually, like I guess a lot of people, like, emphasize their A's more. Like, if I say bag instead of bag or the bubbler thing, um,
Ooh,
I don't know. Just kind of random things that just kind of, like, pop up every once in a while, and they'll be like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" So, I don't know.
I mean, Wisconsin is the Midwest.
Mhm.
I'm from the Midwest.
Yeah.
But the bubbler really
Yes.
would have thrown me. I would
'Cause
have
when I
really
think of
been
a water
confused.
fountain, I think of, like, those big things, like, if you see, like, at a mall or, like, you're just walking around somewhere and it just, like,
Oh,
spits
you think
a
of like a
bunch of
fountain.
water. Yeah. So then that's why, I don't know, I've always called it a bubbler my whole life, my whole family did, and, like, everybody around me did, so I was even at my club gym, like, everybody called it a bubbler, so I guess I was just so used to saying that, and then when I came to Ohio State and mentioned it, they were like, "Wait, like, what?" And I'm like, "I don't know." So, I don't know, it's like little things.
Next time I see Chelsea, I'm gonna have to tell her like, "Oh, do you need to go to the bubbler?" And I just
Yeah.
wanna see if she'll know what I'm
I
talking about.
guarantee she'll know what you're talking about.
Oh my
She'll
gosh.
probably laugh.
Well, now what do you go so this one I was even thrown a little bit by. A shopping cart, like a grocery like a cart.
Mhm.
Do you
Yeah.
call it a
I
buggy?
just call it a shopping cart.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Cool, cool. We can alright, we're good, we're good. The
Yeah.
first time I heard buggy, I was like,
Yeah. My roommate
"Oh,
calls it that, and every time I'm like, "No, it's a shopping cart." But then we get in the whole debate of shopping cart, buggy, water fountain, bubblers, so I don't
mm,
even bring it up anymore, so
that's probably for the best, that's probably for
yeah.
the best."
Yeah.
Well, Peyton, I like to ask all of my guests on here this is it's not a loaded question, but it makes you think deep sometimes, depending on how deep you wanna get. But if there was one thing you could tell your younger self, what would it be?
To not be so hard on myself, probably. I don't know. I feel like that's a really common answer, but I feel like I just work myself up so much about just really stupid things that really don't matter in the long run, and, like, probably 3 or 5 years from now, I'm not even gonna remember it probably. So, I feel like just trying to tell myself, like or just not be so hard on myself, like, even about, like, personal things, like, if what my hair looks like or, like, my outfit or something stupid. I mean, there's been plenty of times I've been, like, running around my room, like, throwing clothes everywhere, just trying to, like, find a really good outfit, and I'm like, "Oh, this just isn't working," and then I'll just be like, "You know what? I give up." So I feel like even, like, stuff like that, just, like, trying to not be so critical of myself and so hard on myself, and I feel like that's in and outside of the gym too.
Yeah, I mean, again, like we've talked about on this podcast many times, and especially even today, it's so easy to be hard on yourself, which is so silly. That actually,
Yeah.
I'm going to think about that a lot this week about why is that?
Mhm.
Because it's so easy to just be really hard on yourself, and sometimes you gotta give yourself some grace. You just
Yes.
gotta let my mom used to always tell me to just let it just let it go.
Mhm.
I don't know how I don't know how to do that, but
Yeah, that's a
really
big
good
thing for me
words.
too. Just I can't ever let things go. I can, but it's hard for me, but yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like that's the hardest part is just trying to let certain things go, and
Mhm,
I feel like, yeah, I hold on to a lot of the stupid things too much, so I feel like just trying to give myself more grace and just be like, "No, like, it really doesn't matter that much," and I feel like a lot of my friends and my family tell me that all the time. They're like, "Does it really matter that much?" And I'm like, "Well, no, but" and then I always, like, try to come up with another excuse of why it does, but I feel like,
my goodness.
especially in the gymnastics world, I think that's a really big thing, and I know it's kind of a common answer, but I feel like a lot of gymnasts and just people in general are so critical of themselves and a lot of things in general, and I feel like if we allow more of that space of, just not worrying so much about trying to have a perfect balance beam routine, or
Mhm,
if you are focusing on a certain detail but can't get it quite that day, it doesn't mean that you're never going to achieve it or you're never going to get it. It's just things take time, and I feel like that's kind of what I've learned as, I guess, closely going into my junior year now, is just a lot of things come with time, and if I can't get
mhm,
something perfect, or I don't wanna say perfect, but if I can't get something, I guess, the way that I would like it to that day or something like that, that it's okay, and I don't have
mhm.
to beat myself up for it, and that yeah, I don't know, just trying not to be so critical of a lot of things.
Well, Peyton, those are very good words to live by. And I hope you remember those words the rest of your career, the rest of your life, but especially going into this weekend. Just really quick, how are you feel? Are you excited? Like what are the emotions right now going into regionals?
Yes, I am so pumped for this weekend. I feel like, as a team, we've focused a lot on kind of what I've mentioned, but just trying to stay in our own bubble, not focus on the scores, and just kind of feeding off of each other's energy and even the energy like in um, the arena. Just I think
Mhm.
with a lot of the time, I feel like people can get a little bit intimidated, even myself, just like with the crowd and the fans. So I feel like even feeding off of that energy, I feel like kind of fuels not only me, but everybody else to kind of go out there and be like, heck yeah, like this is awesome. Like I'm going to go out there and just try to crush this routine. So I think even today, we kind of did more of that inner squad type of practice. And we always play like, um, just like a bunch of like kind of screaming, like, cheering voices on the speakers, so it kind of prepares us for what the crowd or, like, the energy is gonna be like in
Oh.
the arena. So even today, I was kind of, like, thinking about it and picturing myself, um, at Michigan, and I think that that kind of just pumped me up a little bit, and I was like, "Ooh, like, I can't wait to just go out there with my team and just have fun." Yeah.
I love that. Well, Peyton, I wish you and your team the best of luck this weekend. I can't wait to watch it. And I
Thank
just can't
you.
wait for, honestly, for the rest of your career. I am so incredibly excited. I love that you're only a sophomore. That means we get a solid 2 more years out of you. And I cannot wait for your success and just what you have to give to NCAA gymnastics because you are a superstar and you are just a beautiful athlete to watch.
Well, thank you. That means a lot coming from you because you were like my idol growing up. I loved watching you. Even in college, I was like, yes. I even remember like I would try to like go on like YouTube and find like floor musics, and I found yours from in college, and I was like, I want this. And I just remember always like trying like making up little routines and like going
Oh,
with the music, and I was like, I love this. But
oh my
yeah, it means a lot
goodness.
from for you saying that and coming from you. So, thank you so much.
Peyton, why didn't you lead with that at the beginning of the podcast? Come on. I'm just kidding. That is so incredibly sweet of you. And it's crazy what gymnastics helps you not only accomplish, but the path that it takes you on and the people that you get to meet. I think that's one of the coolest things about sports in general is just how many amazing people you get to interact with and meet. So I am just so thankful that you were able to come on the podcast today. And is there
Thank you.
anything else you want the wonderful world of flipping out and really the universe to know about Payton Harris?
Mm, I don't know. I feel like we covered a lot of, like, I guess, really good stuff.
Well, that's the point. That's the point.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. I wish you the best of luck. And I know you're just going to go out there and kick butt. And just remember, let it go.
Yes,
Just
for sure.
let it go.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me.
You're so
It's been so
welcome.
much fun.
That wraps up today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed, and please be sure to tune in every week because we will be dropping new episodes from the amazing guests that I have lined up for you. I am your host, Bridget Sloan, and this is Flipping Out with Bridget Sloan. Please like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day. Let's make some good life choices out there, and don't forget to be awesome. Bye, y'all.